brothers and sisters. Again, let me show you what has compelled us to decide to have a program to help the Asantehene, to help the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, to help the Mamprosis, to help the Kusasis, and to help Ghanaians solve the Bawku conflict between the Mamprosis and the Kusasis permanently, forever, with no doubt. And that solution is not coming from me. It's not coming from the president. It's not coming from the Asantehene. It's not coming from the Mamprosis, but it is coming from the Kusasis. And the solution is in this book. The solution of the Bawku problem, the conflict, the land ownership problem, the chieftaincy conflict, whether you separate the two or you combine them, the solution is here. The solution to the land dispute, whether the land belongs to the Kusasis or the land belongs to the Mamprosis, is here. The solution to whether chieftaincy is for the Mamprosis or the Kusasis, the solution is here. You only need to read this book and to know how to decode it. My dear brothers and sisters, what we're going to do tonight is to provide the world, to provide Ghanaians, to provide Asantehene, to provide the President of the Republic raw facts as stated by the Kusasis about themselves. I cannot emphasize more or much about this book when I keep saying that this book is written by Kusasis, about Kusasis, and for Kusasis. My dear brothers and sisters, let's listen to the Asantehene. This is also one of the videos that is very relevant in solving the Bawku conflict. Let's listen to Asantehene.
Kani judicial committee ne binmo jisika ne abuasa no na aye nwanwan so ba e toto no ama bantane ne nyina ti edi buama de odi fokrachia de odi bemmo mu nyina aso de nsatu yem ko eno na ma sa hinsam ne ntokwa no ba se nkontompo no ba na ma no basa boko eguso afenia ma busa no modi afi na me bi hia yi nyina ya di abutre no kredi ha obia ma obia ka obia ba kana samnieti na di enti a achia ma na basa ne yakoni ehumu no kre me anairi wa ba me na di nkomo boko na ba wa ba me na di nkomo brusi ade she wo boko komo so aba me di nkomo ma krachifo ma akumi enu bi wo ma frɛ ne di nkomo say your paper be answer the about making kind in a year for your friend be a bishia, a bedding common, yet the no crana. You put some way, who said, as I'm not said, the no crazy. You grew on the United and the Marshall young queen and sing, and didn't talk on the United when the child.
All right, my dear brothers and sisters, I cannot reiterate more to two ways that I take from what Asantehene said. He was appealing or admonishing or encouraging all of us, Ghanaians and everybody, Kusasis and Mamprosis, to be very patient in our effort or his effort to help Ghanaians, to help Ghana solve the Bawku conflict. And he did state very clearly that the solution, or what we all ought to be looking for in order to resolve the conflict permanently, is the truth. The truth. 5-letter words. The truth. Let me share with you my last video, then we'll go straight to business. You see, all these videos that I'm sharing with you, it spices up the program. It gives more education. It gives more perspective before you get the facts. So that is actually the essence. That's why I take my time to always program my content.
Settled there, and Kusasi never existed. We came. Let us put the guns down. Let us use the evidence available to us, orally, documentarily, and otherwise, and let us debate. Let the world know if they want us to send the case to the court of public opinion. There are so many radio stations, so many television stations. I think the government or some other organizations can foot that bill and let them get their best historians and those who claim to know all the facts. And let us debate so that we can spare the lives of these innocent, young, bubbling men and women that were gunning down and destroying.
Yes, I'm a history student. When you come to history, much of the Kusasi is not known. The histories of the Kusasis are more or less like the conflict, and this current Bawku issue. But as a history student and a future leader to come, we want to know, because this is not only the environment. You might meet somebody somewhere who intends to know the real history of the Kusasi. In the documentaries we have, it is not clear. We can't trace the origin to a place where we can clearly say we came from. We don't know where we came from. As to whether we emanated from the ground, we came from Far East, we came from East Africa, North Africa, we don't know. You have learned more than us, and you have known the history for a long decades. We want to seek your opinion, if you can share that knowledge with us. Thank you.
So encourage you about the history is that we are not the only exception, but that is how it is, and it is because those who wrote the history, I mean the whites and so on, they focus more on the conflict and so on. But it is now time for us to write our own history, okay? And so we always start somewhere. And that's why the course you are doing is very important. And we will write our own history. We will try and trace our roots. History is about facts. So you can't just sit down and write what is from your head. We know that there are Kusasis in Burkina Faso, and early writers like Sai and Co. made reference to that. They suggested that we must have migrated from Bimbo and so on, and so on. But there are things that we need to interrogate further. And so it is not something to regret. It has nothing to do with moving forward, and it is not late. We will do that. We need more people, more of our students to do history and know how to write history, know how to interview people and come up with history, read other historical sources.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So I indicated earlier on with the Asantehene was appealing to all of us to be patient in seeking the truth. And in fact, what we need as a solution to the Bawku problem is the truth. Now, when you listen to Sule Agolisi, and Sule Agolisi is one of the prominent Kusasi elders, together with the late John Ndebugri, my good friend, together with George Agbango, who is also in the United States here with me. They provided constructive review of the content of this book. And when you read this book, it tells us that the role of Sule Agolisi, John Ndebugri, Agbango, and all those who provided constructive review is to give this book the quality it deserves. The quality, the content, the quality of the content it deserves. Now, Sule Agolisi, in the video talking to one of the Kusasi youth, did say that we should put down the guns. Kusasis, let's put down the guns. The guns will not help us. Mamprusis, let's put down the guns. The guns will not help us. What will help us, according to Sule Agolisi, which I absolutely agree, is that let's use evidence. Let's use evidence. And do what with the evidence, you may ask. Let's use evidence to find the truth, which will give us the solution to the problem. Now, when you listen to that young Kusasi guy, my brother, I should call him so, he also emphasized much on two things, which I will call his priorities or his needs, or broadly speaking, the needs of the Kusasis. And what are those two things? He was telling the Kusasi leaders that we don't know our beginning. What is our beginning? We know we are Kusasis. We know we are in the Bawku traditional area. What is our beginning? Where did we come from? What is our history? Basically, that's what he was saying. He was in dire need. Very important. The second thing he did say was that they don't know their history. They, the Kusasis, they don't know their history, especially the youth, young guy like him. He is a history student, but he doesn't know the history of the Kusasis. All he knows about is the conflict. Kusasi Mamprusis fighting. And it's about chieftaincy. That is all that he knows. And that is all that most Kusasi or many Kusasi know. So what is our history? Then in an answer to the concerns of the young Kusasi student, history student, Professor Aaron, who is one of the authors or contributors of this book. Aaron is one of the authors described by, described in this book as contributors. There are 8 of them. Aaron is one of them. And Aaron said that history is about facts. History is about facts. And that they, the Kusasis, will try and trace their roots. Now, if this is the Kusasis' history, what we should be expecting from this book is the facts. Nothing but the facts. Facts about Kusasis being told by Kusasis for Kusasis. And in this book, the Kusasis have been able to trace their roots. In this book, the Kusasis have been able to trace their roots, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's go to the facts. My dear brothers and sisters, when I took my time to peruse this book, I made some notes that is worth sharing. In this book, the Kusasis told us black and white that you cannot become a chief without proof of owning land. You cannot become a chief without proof of owning land. In other words, the Kusasis, if they want to be chief of Bawku, they should be able to provide proof that Bawku is their land. If they want to say that the Kusasi should be the paramount chief of the entire Bawku traditional area, they should be able to provide proof that they are the indigenous people of the Bawku traditional area, or they were the first settlers, or they are the first settlers, if I may put it that way, in other words, of the Bawku traditional areas. If the Mamprusis are also saying that they should be chiefs of Bawku, by this standard, the standard set by the Kusasis, which is you cannot become a chief without proof of owning land, the Mamprusis should be able to tell us, they should be able to prove to us that they own Bawku, therefore should be chiefs of Bawku, or they were the first people to settle in the Bawku traditional area, therefore should be the paramount chief of the Bawku traditional area. My dear brothers and sisters. Now let me read some 2 paragraphs or 1 paragraph in this book. Then I will then go on to give you the facts, the raw facts as stated by the Kusasis. In this book, when you go to page 9, page 18, continue to page 19. It makes a conclusion, the conclusion of the history of the Kusasis, the part 1 of the history. Now, let me explain. This book, the history of the Kusasis, the authors categorize the history of the Kusasis in 3 folds. Chapter 1 dealt with an aspect of their history. Chapter 2 dealt with another aspect of their history. And I think chapter 3 also dealt with another aspect of their history. So that is how they segmented their history in 3 folds. Now, chapter 1 lays the foundation. Chapter 1 is about the formative years, the early years of the Kusasis. In other words, the beginning. They give you the beginning of the Kusasis, right? So after writing chapter 1, the author of that chapter, James, he wrote a conclusion. Now, let me read just some relevant part. It says, the first chapter has focused on documenting the early history of the Kusasis and Kusau, the early history of the Kusasis and Kusau. It draws largely from primary sources to dispute some claims in colonial sources about the origins and governance of the Kusasis, to dispute some claims in colonial sources about the origins and governance of the Kusasis. Then the last paragraph of the conclusion says, the early documentation of that formative history has been fragmented and distorted. This chapter, now listen to this particular part of the sentence. This chapter sought to correct that distorted past by enabling the people of Kusau to represent their own history as they know it and have experienced it, which has been documented here in this book. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, according to the Kusasis in this book, they have a long history of migration. And their long history of migration can be traced to the Sudanese Empire. Now, the Sudanese Empire here is not referring to Sudan, present-day Sudan. The Sudanese Empire is what the whites refer to when they're talking about the Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, the Songhai, and all that, right? So the white they box all these empires that existed those days to describe it as the Sudanese Empire, right? So the Kusasis are saying that they have a long history of migration and they can trace their roots of migration to the Sudanese Empire. And of course, almost every tribe, even the Mamprosis, traces their root to that era, right? And the Sudanese Empire existed in the 13th and 16th century. It began in the early 13th and ended in the late 16th century. When you read this book, part of the long history of migration of the Kusasis will tell you that when they migrated from the Sudanese Empire, they came to present-day Burkina Faso. They came and settled in present-day Burkina Faso. And they have stated in this book, that their affinity to the Moshi kingdom is not in doubt. In other words, there are similarities and whatever with the Mosi people or the Moshi kingdom is not in doubt. So they, the Kusasis, are telling all of us that they can trace their roots to Burkina Faso. They can trace their roots to Burkina Faso. To put it in a more accurate way, it tells you that the Kusasis that we find in the Bawku traditional area today, God did not create them and place them directly there. They migrated from somewhere to come and settle there. The Kusasis are settlers in the Bawku traditional area. Now, whether they are the first settlers before the Mamprosis or before any other tribe is another thing, but we will find the answer in this book. So two important things. The Kusasis trace their roots to the Sudanese Empire, and from there, they came to present-day Burkina Faso. Now, interestingly, when they came to Burkina Faso, the Kusasis will tell you in their history book that by 1870, now this is why you need to pay attention to the dates. By 1870, according to the Kusasis, they had migrated to Zabre. Zabre is one of the settlement areas in Burkina Faso, present-day Burkina Faso. And Zabre is a Bisa territory. It's for the Bisas, and the Kusasis have acknowledged that. So it means that the Kusasis, when they came to Burkina Faso, they migrated to Zabre to be with the Bisas. That land is not for the Kusasis, it's for the Bisas. Then from the Bisa land Zabre in Burkina Faso, the Kusasis tell us in this book, everything I'm telling you is in this book, that from Zabre, they moved to another settlement known as Zor, Z-O-R. Zor. Zor, other people, sorry, they moved from Zabre, they moved to Zor and Zodik. Zodik, I believe, is a French word, so forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it very well. But some people believe that Zodik is Zwaga, the English name that we know, Zwaga. Then Yuga and Bing. Bing, too, I believe, is a French word. And Bing, others people say, is Bingu. So the Kusasis are telling us that when they migrated from the Sudanese Empire, they came to Burkina Faso. When they came to Burkina Faso, they settled in Zabre, a Moshi territory, and from Zabre, they moved to 3 other settlement areas: Zo, Zwaga, Yuga, and Bingu. That's 4 settlement areas. 4 settlement areas. And all these areas are in present-day Burkina Faso. According to the Kusasis too, my dear brothers and sisters, now take note of the date, 1870. They said by 1870, when they came to Burkina Faso, by 1870, they had settled in Zabre with the Bisas. Then years later, they moved to Zwaga, Yuga, and Bingu. These are the Kusasis telling us their own history. According to the Kusasis, again, they provided date. And you know, in history, one thing that is very, very fundamental and significant is dates. When you read this book by Syme, the Kusasis, A Short History, Syme gave a brief account of the Kusasi history. What Syme failed to do is to provide dates. In fact, in this book, Syme told us that the Kusasis originally came from Yuga, Zwaga, and Bingu to settle in present-day Ghana. However, Syme did not tell us when that migration occurred. In this book, the Kusasis gave us the date. And what is the date? According to the Kusasis, by 1895, the Tuonde Kusasis entered Widinaba, and Widinaba is outside the French control. You know, the French conquered the Moshi Kingdom. You know, during the, there's this, this popular, this important historical event. The scramble for Africa. You know, during the scramble for Africa, that's where the Europeans shared African continent among themselves. You have the British saying that they own here, the French saying that they own, the Germans saying that they own, and all that. You see? Now, the French, once upon a time, conquered the Moshi kingdom and took control. And according to the Kusasis, in 1895, now the Kusasis are telling us when they came to present-day Ghana, when they moved from Burkina Faso to present-day Ghana. According to the Kusasis, in 1885, that is 5 years after they had moved to Zabre in the Moshi territory in Burkina Faso, and later on moved to Zo, Yuga, Zouaga, and Bingu in 1885. The Twende Kusas, they entered Widinaba, while the Agole Kusas settled in Zose, Zabugu, Misiga, Garu, and Bawku. 1885. My dear brothers and sisters. Then, according to the Kusasis again, by 1890, again 5 years after the first batch of Kusasis, the Tuende, that's the Zebula Kusasis, 5 years after they had moved from Burkina Faso, from Yuga and Bingu area to come to Widinaba, and the Bawku Kusasis also came to Zoasi, Zabugu, Misiga, Garu, and Bawku. By 1890, independent towns in both the Bawku area and the Zebila area, that's the Tuende and Agole, had been established. Independent Kusasi towns had been established by 1890. My dear brothers and sisters, when I was talking about the French conquering of the Moshi Kingdom, that occurred in 1896. It occurred in 1896. That is 11 years after the Kusasis had entered present-day Ghana. So at the time that the French conquered the Moshi Kingdom, the Kusasis that we know today in Ghana were not in Burkina Faso at that time, according to the Kusasis themselves. Now, in this book also, the Kusasis told us that Bawku was a traveling commercial post. Now, listen to this. Bawku was a traveling commercial post between the Western Sudanese empires and the South. I'm quoting them here. Between the Western Sudanese empires and the South, particularly Mamprusis and Ashanti. This is the Kusasis telling us their own history. And I'm quoting them. He said, Bawku was a thriving commercial post between the Western Sudanese empires and the South, particularly Mamprusis and Ashanti. Then it went on to say that this was around the 18th century. Actually, they went on to say that this was around the 18th century. Now, there's something that we've been doing, we've not been paying attention to when it comes to centuries. Even the man, I remember I once drew attention, that particular thing, the attention of one of my brothers, but he didn't see the relevance. He ignored me. He dismissed my input on that. For example, when we say 16th century, what does it mean? When we say 15th century, what does it mean? When we say 17th century, what does it mean? When we say 18th century, what does it mean? Now, you need to be very careful. If you don't understand these things, you may be you may be talking about 18th century. Meanwhile, the event that you are talking about occurred in the 19th century. Now, let me explain. When you talk about 18th century begins in 1701 and ends in 1800. 18th century doesn't begin in 1800. It ends in 1800. 18th century begins in 1701 and ends in 1800. 19th century, when you hear somebody say an event occurred in the 19th century, it means that event occurred between 1801 all the way to 1900. Again, when somebody say the 17th century, it means that it started in 1601 and end in 1700. My dear brothers and sisters, so let's take this very important. If you value history and value dates, right? 1700 doesn't mean that it happened in 1721 or 17. No, that is not 1700 doesn't necessarily mean so. In fact, the first Bawku na Ali was in skin in 1721. It doesn't mean that is the 17th century. It is the 18th century. It is the 18th century. Now, what it therefore means is that when you see the Kusasis keep giving us date, they say 1870, they migrated to Zabre. 1885, they entered with Inaba. There's what is it? The Twinde Kusasis, and then the Agole Kusasis came to Zuasi, Zabugu, Misiga, Garu, and Bawku. And by 1890, independent towns in Kusasi has been established. Now, when you take that date and you refer to it as the 18th century, you are misleading yourself and your readers. These dates, 1870, 1885, 1890, all fall under the 19th century. You can just Google 19th century, and you get what I'm talking about. Right? So when we want to be very factual and accurate with our dates, when you read in this book, when the Kusasi tell you that they migrated from Burkina Faso to present-day Ghana in the 18th century, and they provide dates like 1870, 1885, 1890, they are misleading you. What it actually means is that they migrated from Burkina Faso to present-day Ghana in the 19th century. In the 19th century. And Syme captured that in this book. The Kusasis tried to dodge it, but again, they couldn't dodge it. because they provided dates. They said 1870. 1870 is not the 18th century. It is the 19th century. 1885 is not the 18th century. It is the 19th century. 1890 is not the 18th century. It is the 19th century, because 18th century ends in 1800, period. It begins in 1701 and ends in 1800. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, let's continue. The Kusasis and their history also told us that, and I'm quoting them, they said around the 18th century, and which I told you that is beginning 1701 to 1800. 18th century begins in 1701 and ends in 1800. Now, I told you that the first chief of Bawku was skinned by the Nayiri in 1721. That falls within the 18th century. So what happens in the 18th century regarding Bawku? According to the Kusasis, around the 18th century, Bawku developed a community of polyglot immigrants. From where? I'm quoting them here. Bawku developed a community of polyglot immigrants from Nigeria, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, made up of Bisas, Moshis, Yanga, Wangara, Gayo, and Bimoba, and Konkombes from Togo. Now, let me give you a map. Since this is an educative program, I need to give you a map so that you can understand this. Now, this is the map of Burkina Faso. This is the map of Burkina Faso. Now, when you look at the map of Burkina Faso, you see Ghana. You see where my cursor is. Ghana to the south, right? Then, just where Ghana is, to the right, you see Togo. Then, above Togo is Benin. Now, when you go all the way up, let me say northeast, you may say northeast, you have Niger. Then when you come to the left, you have Mali. Now, when you come down to the left, you have Ivory Coast. Now, these are the countries that are neighbors to Burkina Faso. So the Kusasis told us in their history book that around the 18th century, that is beginning 1701 to 1800, Bawku developed a community of polyglot immigrants from Nigeria, from Niger, from Mali, and Burkina Faso. And who are the tribes that migrated from these areas? They said the Bisas, the Moshis, the Yangas, the Wangara, the what is it, and then the Gaos, including the Bimoba and the Konkomba. But in their history, they said the Bimoba and the Konkomba came from Togo. The Konkomba and the Bimoba came from Togo, my dear brothers and sisters. Now, you have to note something very significant. The Kusasis never mentioned the Mamprusis as one of the immigrants to have come from any of these areas to present-day Ghana around that time, around the 18th century. Now, what that implies is that between 1701 to 1800, when these tribes, according to the Kusasi, the Bises, the Moshis, the Yanges, the Wangaras, all of them that you find in the Bawku traditional theory today, beginning 1701 to 1800. Before or during that time, the Mamprusis were already in present-day Ghana. The Mamprusis were in present-day Ghana. That is why the Kusasis, I believe, did not add the Mamprusis name there as one of the immigrants, right? That came from any of these areas to meet the Kusasis there. My dear brothers and sisters, now we need to ask a very significant question. These facts that I'm reading to you or I'm sharing with you is from this book. And I challenge the authors of this book to tell me that I'm not, the information that I'm providing is not from this book. Now, I have a question. Where did the Kusasis gather these true facts about their migration? Where did they gather these facts about their migration? The answer is in this book. And what did the Kusasis say? According to the Kusasis, when you go to page 1 and 4 of this book, the author tells us, and I quote, findings of interviews and consultations with local leaders and experts of indigenous knowledge. Findings of interviews and consultations with local leaders and experts of indigenous knowledge. It also continues to say, interviews with chiefs, griots, hunters, elders, and clan heads from Ghana, Burkina Faso, and northwestern Togo. Clan heads from Kosanaba, Boya, and Tili, who were interviewed on their origins for this book. I'm quoting them. Trace their roots to Burkina Faso or beyond. So the facts, the true facts about the Kusasis came from Kusasi chiefs, Kusasi griots, Kusasi hunters, Kusasi elders, Kusasi clan heads from Ghana, Burkina Faso, and Western Togo. So this is an extensive work, extensive research that got them the facts that I'm reading, I'm sharing with you. And in this book, they gave a typical example. They said clan heads from Kusanaba, Boya, and Tili. Now, take note of Boya. In subsequent program, maybe tomorrow, I'm not too sure, we will talk about Boya. And then this is very interesting, my dear brothers and sisters. But let me just conclude here. He said, clan heads, listen to this, clan heads from Kusanaba, Boya, and Tili, who were interviewed on their origins for this book, trace their roots to Burkina Faso or beyond. My dear brothers and sisters. Now, I talked about Boya. I think we've done 1 hour mark. Maybe I should end here and then we'll continue tomorrow, because I wanted to talk about the first settlers among the Kusasis and also talk about the clan heads. Then tomorrow we'll talk about the Tendanes and all those kind of things. My dear brothers and sisters. Anyway. Well, let me pause a bit and show you this photo. So this is the day this book was launched, and you have Cletus Avoca there. We have six persons all holding the book. The only person I know there is Cletus Avoca, who is in a smock. The Kusasis history. All right, my dear brothers and sisters. There's more work for us to do to reveal the truth about the Kusasis in this book to the Kusasis, to Ghanaians, to Asante Hene, and to His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama. My dear brothers and sisters, I think I should end here so that tomorrow we will continue with the first settlers in the Bawku traditional area, the first Kusasi settlers in the Bawku traditional area. Now, I'm not going to tell you right now. I'm not going to tell you whether the Kusasis are the first settlers in the Bawku traditional area or the Mamprusis. As we go on, at a point, I'll do a summary and highlight all this. But for those of you who can't just do your own, let me say, who may want to do your own chit-chatting in your rooms, let me just highlight one or two things that you need to take to start asking that question. According to the Kusasis, it is a fact that they migrated from Burkina Faso to present-day Ghana. That one, it is a fact. They said it. No, the Mamprusis have been saying it. Syme have said it. The Kusasis said, no, you guys are writing our history for us. You are telling our history for us. You are concocting stories. You are misrepresenting and all that. So we are going to write our own history. And this is what they came with. They took 4 years to write this. And in the 4 years of research, they came to the conclusion that, yes, indeed, they traced their roots to Burkina Faso. They traced their roots to Burkina Faso. When they, or beyond Burkina Faso, is the Sudanese Empire. Now, when they came to Burkina Faso, they said by 1870, they migrated from the Sudanese Empire. By 1870, they settled, they moved to Zabre. Zabre, when they got to Zabre in Burkina Faso, the business were already there. So they went and met them there, right? That is by 1870. Now listen to this. Then 1885. By 1885, the Tuende Kusasis entered within Aba. By 1885. By that same year, the Agole, that is the Bawku Kusasis, also migrated to Zosi, Zabugu, Misiga, Garu, and Bawku. Well, I don't know whether around 1895 the Mamprusis were in Bawku or not. I can't tell. Whether around 1885 the Mamprusis were in any part of the Bawku traditional area, I don't know. I'm only telling you what the Kusasis are telling us. And they're saying that by 1890, independent Kusasi towns in the Bawku traditional area, by 1890 were established, fully established. My dear brothers and sisters. So I think I will end tonight's program here, and tomorrow we'll continue with part 3. We'll continue with part 3 tomorrow. And tomorrow, let me give you a highlight. We'll be talking about the first settlers among the Kusasis in the Bawku traditional area. You know, the Kusasis they came in different groups known as clans. So who were the first clans, or which clan is the first to settle in present day Ghana? The answer is in this book. So tomorrow we'll be talking about that. Where they first settled, we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about the clans, and I have some questions to ask. We'll also be talking about Tindanas, and we'll also be talking about the history of chieftaincy among the Kusasis. So tomorrow, that is what we'll be dealing with, my dear brothers and sisters. Thank you so very much for your time. And I will meet tomorrow, my dear brothers and sisters. Thank you very much for your time, and God bless you. Assalamu alaikum.